Hello everybody, and welcome back. Today for you I have Super R-Type for the SNES. This is a video that I've been looking forward to making for quite a while, ever since my Gradius 3 video where I brought it up. Ever since my Gradius 2 video, really, when I first mentioned the series, I was like, I really want to do Super R-Type because this is one of my favorite shoot-'em-ups, probably one of my favorite games of all time, really. Just because, you know, the game looks, it sounds really, really nice, and much like Gradius 3 SNES, it's got the SA1 patch, which we're going to be playing today, eliminates all the slowdown, which is like one of the big things that people complain about at this game. So I'm really excited for this. We're going to start. Alright, first stage. Now, a little bit of background about this game. This really was meant to be an SNES port of R-Type 2, which was released in arcades back in 1989. However, Nintendo had this thing, this like exclusivity deal, I think it was called, where like, you know, arcade ports, Nintendo couldn't really do arcade ports very much. Like there was a few fighting games and things like that got through, but like generally speaking, arcade ports were kind of frowned upon. Ports of arcade games generally need to be made significantly different from the originals in order to make it onto a Nintendo console. That's why we have games like Gradius 2 NES, Gradius 3 SNES, where they're significantly different, almost completely different games from their arcade contemporaries. You know, they might have similar music, they might look similar and have like, you know, a few similarities about them. However, there will be like very significant changes to like, you know, the level design especially, and this is a thing that's very apparent in Super R-Type. It shares only about half of its stages with R-Type 2, and the other, you know, couple of stages are like, you know, remixed in some way, or they're just like completely new levels altogether. And honestly, in my opinion, as someone who has played both games, I really like Super R-Type's levels a lot better. I find R-Type 2, it leans very much into that arcadey kind of like, fuck you, we're taking all of your money kind of level design, especially near the end. It's just really, it is very unapologetic about taking your money. And yeah, and the music itself as well also isn't the greatest. Also, I just one-shot that boss. You'll be seeing that a lot. A lot of these early bosses you can just take out in like one charge shot if you place it well enough. But yeah, the music in R-Type 2, in my opinion, isn't as good either. It sounds kind of grating, a lot of the instrumentation that's used, and while that's kind of commonplace for a lot of arcade games to have like kind of twangy soundtracks to them, it is especially apparent in R-Type 2, and I'll play a little example here. So as you could tell, Super R-Type's song is much more, you know, funky. It has much better instrumentation than the other one. And while, you know, the arcade song, the arcade instruments they certainly have their merits. I'm being very generous with that, but like, I don't know, it's just not my cup of tea. And I think this game improves upon R-Type 2 in almost every single way. And the only reason people don't like this one as much is simply because of the slowdown. There's also one other factor to it as well, which is that this game doesn't have any checkpoints in the middle of levels. A lot of shoot-'em-ups, especially R-Type games, will have a checkpoint about halfway through the level, and maybe another one right before the boss. This game does not have that. You have to start all the way at the beginning of the level each time, which to some people might seem like a bad thing, but honestly, I really appreciate it. Because a big flaw in a lot of shoot-'em-ups I've noticed, especially in the Gradius series, is that checkpoint recovery is like almost nothing. Like you can't recover after dying in the middle of a level in a lot of shoot-'em-ups, especially Gradius, and to some extent R-Type, although R-Type is a little bit better with that. Because, you know, it's arcade games and they're trying to take your money. So obviously they're going to make things as stupidly unfair and difficult as possible. But yeah, I don't mind starting over at the beginning of the level in this game because it allows you to get all your power-ups back. Because that's the thing, when you die in a shoot-'em-up, you usually lose all of your power-ups, and the only way to get it back is to play through the level again. Also, this is one of my favorite boss designs ever. You know how I said before that I was in Gradius 2 video, I said that I was a really big fan of like the H.R. Geiger aesthetic and things like that because of like, you know, all the biomechanical stuff. And this boss actually has some pretty cool lore behind it as well, in that it's meant to be like a planet-killing weapon. So I kind of imagine that whole level we just went through as like a giant gun barrel, that thing fires a giant laser down, and it, you know, that's what it used to do before it, you know, became derelict like that. Now you might notice that I'm kind of blowing through this game a little bit. There's probably going to be very few cuts and things like that as I'm talking here, because that's the thing. I have played this game so much that I have my muscle memory on it is completely intact. Like, you know, I've talked about before about how like commentary might get in the way of my ability to play the game because, you know, talking and playing at the same time, it's kind of difficult. This game, it is not as much of a problem because I was just so obsessed with this game at one point. Like, there was a couple of months there where I would get home from work and then I would do a Super R-Type run and then I would actually, like, you know, do my other plans for the night. Like, I was completely engrossed in this game. I don't play it as often anymore, just because, you know, I want to get into other games and things like that, and, you know, I got to a point where I got kind of burnt out on it, because, you know, who doesn't get burnt out in a game where they play through the same 7 stages each and every day? But, yeah, this game is that good. Because, like, this game is just dripping with atmosphere. Like, look at the backgrounds, look at, like, all the detail that's put into that. Like, that's just so beautiful. And, like, you know, just speculating about what all these things could be and what they could do, and it's a very engaging environment to be in, and the music just makes it all that much better. This sort of funky, jazzy, kind of like, you know, I don't even know what kind of, like, genre this is, but that kind of goes for, like, a lot of video game music. But this soundtrack in particular is just so catchy, so memorable, and just, I cannot praise this game enough. So you can see why I was, like, you know, jonesing to play it so much back in when I was doing my other Gradius videos. Alright, here we go. This is a very famous level theme in the R-Type series, the Battleship stage. Now this is a level theme you see in a lot of shmups, and it was R-Type that really pioneered it. You know, I'm sure there was others before it, but it was R-Type that really made this famous with its Battleship stage in the first game. And R-Type 2, this stage is completely different. You're actually fighting your way through multiple battleships, and in my opinion, it's like the only reason that you should play through R-Type 2. Like, it's a very fun stage in R-Type 2. But that's like the only reason that R-Type 2 would be considered worth playing over this game, honestly. Since every other unique stage in R-Type 2 is, in my opinion, worse than the alternate stage in this one. It's actually a fun little thing about the music in this level, is that there's an unused portion where it was implied, I guess, the ship was meant to have, like, the giant battleship was meant to have some sort of, like, I don't know, some kind of foghorn to it, because you can hear in the background this, like, very, like, you can sort of hear the residue of that in this track with, like, the horn that you hear at the beginning of the track, but it's very, very pronounced in this, like, unused variant of the song. So this boss, in particular, is very, this is the one that you can't, like, take out with a single charge shot, and I'll show you why. It's got these, like, laser things to it. It's got, like, you'll see. Yeah, those very, like, fast-moving lasers are, like, near impossible to dodge. So I spent many hours on my first playthrough of this game trying to figure out how to beat this boss. And, you know, no one's played the SA1 version very much on YouTube, so I kind of had to come up with this strategy myself, where you just kind of hide in the corner like a little coward, before finally you're able to come out, start chipping away at this thing with the charge shots. And you want to do this, you don't want to go right up to it and destroy it with a single charge shot, because that's what you save it for this one for, because that one shoots out even more lasers, and it's even more impossible to dodge, and that corner is no longer safe. But much like the other bosses in this game, it just kicked its ass. I got the feeling this is going to be a very short recording session, unless I just completely choke in the second half of the game, which is very possible, because the hardest stage in the game is coming up. I spent weeks on my first playthrough trying to play through this stage for the first time. I like the music in the stage is just embedded in my brain. So yeah, it's the hardest stage in the game, and it also has the hardest boss. And you'll see that. I like to call it the angriest wall in the Bido Empire, which, by the way, is the name of the antagonist of this game, the Bido Empire. It's like the Bacterians and Gradius. They're just like the, nameless biomechanical alien race. I think the reason you see so many like biomechanical, especially like H.R. Geiger themed alien races in shmups, is not only because it's like, it's a very cool thing to have, but I think it's the success of the Alien movies in the late 70s and the early 80s. H.R. Geiger designed the Xenomorph, so it's very easy to understand why that sort of design took off. But yeah, see those like robots up there? That's straight up a Xenomorph, and like one of the most famous bosses in the R-Type series, called Dobkeratops, that's a mouthful of a name right there, isn't it? Is essentially just like a, giant Xenomorph with his arms hacked off. Like that's what it looks like. And the thing about that boss that I said earlier that I like the design of so much, that's actually got like a Dobkeratops inside of it. If the boss lasts long enough and you actually shoot at it like, regular boss as opposed to destroying it in one charge shot like I did, you'll see that it's actually got a Dobkeratops hiding inside of that sort of mechanical shell. Alright, here we go. We got the hardest boss in the game coming up. I beat it. There we go. I beat the crap. I beat the shit out of that guy. I'm talking like a mile in a minute here. I am 15 minutes into this recording session. Jesus Christ. I'm gonna have to do like zero editing. This is my favorite stage, by the way. Favorite song, favorite stage. Favorite aesthetic, by the way. This is like the most, other than the final stage, this is the most like biomechanical looking stage of all, and it's just, it is sublime. It's also a nice respite from the previous stage. It's not quite as intense as the other one is. Well, you still need to keep a lookout. You still need to be careful. That's the thing. R-Type is what I have dubbed the thinking man's shoot 'em up, because the slow scroll speed of the screen, and just like the fact that enemies don't really shoot projectiles at you very much, they just sort of fly at you, and there's a lot of like stage heads and things like that. I'd like to consider it like almost like a puzzle game in a sense of just trying to figure out like exactly how you're supposed to make your way through each stage, and attaching your force to the front or the back of the ship and that kind of thing. Well, generally it's a good thing just to keep your shield in front of you. That's just a general rule for a lot of things. It's sometimes you do have to switch to the back, like right here. Put that on the back right there. And my favorite bit of music is okay. Was not paying attention there at all, but that's okay. We can recover. Like I said, starting over at the beginning of the stage lets you recover your power-ups way easier. Come on, missiles. Hit the turrets, please. Thank you. Oh, look at that. Yeah, the missile AI in this game is kind of... it's not the greatest. Oh, no, I want to be on the front for a little bit. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, the missiles kind of go all over the place sometimes. It's not the greatest thing in the world. It's not Super Less Laser. I'm probably going to play Super Less at some point. That game is a lot of fun too. A lot of the SNES shmups really don't get as much attention as they should, probably because of the slowdown and things like that. But thanks to SA1 and Overclock and all those sorts of fun little things, doodads, gadgets of modern emulation, we get to enjoy these games in their optimal form, in their best light. Just like with Super R-Type, you know, this game would be a slowed down piece of shit if it wasn't for that SA1 patch. But look at it now. It's very satisfying to get through that segment, even though you don't really do much because you just let everything fall on top of your shield. Oh god. I want that missile, I want that missile, I want that missile! There we go. That spread bomb is very nice to have on the final stage. Here we go. This boss is kind of strange. It's kind of it's based off of a boss that you see in the first R-Type game a little bit. Although, you know, obviously has a few has a few changes to it. And it also has like some very distinct movement patterns. Like it has, I've like, you know, played this game enough times to notice, excuse me, Jesus Christ. I've played this game enough times to notice that this boss has like very distinctive movement patterns and it's like different each time. Like noticeably different, to the point where you can like develop a certain movement strategy for each one. I haven't, you know, played this game enough times to fully memorize each pattern yet, but like, I'm probably close. I mean, I just kicked its ass right there. Like, usually I have a little bit of trouble with that. Alright, final stage coming up. This is probably the only bad stage in the game, just because there's so much shit flying at you from every angle that it's just a pain in the ass. And also for the first half of the level, you can literally just sit right here and not do anything. For the second half, you actually have to move around and do stuff, but even then, it's like super tight. Navigating through enemies is bullshit, and you'll see. It's not very fun, and I spent a lot of time on this stage too. Before I figured out, oh, you can just hide in the corner for the first half of the level, and literally everything just misses you. Alright, here we go, second half of the level. These little gremlins start coming out of the woodwork, and this is where having that drop bomb that I collected in the last stage is very helpful, because it just clears out everything below you very nicely. Yeah, the key here is just be patient and just let things come to you. And hopefully just take your time and just be very tentative with things. You don't want to be overly aggressive with these things. Okay, come on, come on. Alright, see that hole there? You think that hole is salvation? It's not. There's going to be enemies coming in and out of there for a little bit. You want to skim the top. And there you go, you're in. Perfect. Final boss time. Final boss is a sight to behold, by the way. You'll see it. That's nice. Alright, and that was Super R-Type for the SNES. And I'm not going to read that because, you know, y'all can read that on your own, and I'm not good at reading things. So anyway, that was Super R-Type for the SNES. thank you all so much for watching. If you like what you saw, feel free to like the video, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Helps other people see this video and maybe even do the same. You never know. I've got some really cool and funny plans for October, videos for that. There's some funny games. Oh goodness me. Yeah, this game also loops. I'm going to be doing other loops today. Maybe some other time. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Have a good night.